Hey friend, my name is Bryce Henson, CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp and one of your co-hosts here at the Fit Body Inside Look. Now this show is for our franchise partners and for those who are interested in joining our brand, where we execute meaningful interviews with our franchise partners, internal HQ team, coaches and clients to be able to provide you more insight and to get more acquainted with our brand and also to showcase the business opportunity available. Thanks so much and enjoy the episode. Hey friends, welcome back to another amazing episode of the Fit Body Inside Look. Today I have a special guest who is literally a dear friend, like a family member to me. So I want to welcome Miss Jessica Piersol to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to be here. I'm nervous
but-
too. We're going to be both excited and nervous together.
Okay, good.
All right, so Miss Jessica, what do you do for Fit Body? What's your role?
My role here at Fit Body, I am the Director of Finance and Human Resources, so finance and HR.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to dive into that. Before we do, I want to kind of rewind the clock a little bit and just get to know you a little bit about Jessica the person. So
Okay.
where are you originally from? Let's tell us about your youth.
Originally, I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so grew up on the East Coast, very blue collar. When I was about 18 months old, I moved to a log cabin in the middle of nowhere
Yes.
and outside of Philadelphia, so Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, very well known for Amish people. So I grew up in the country, like shoveling snow, stacking wood, like a country girl. So
There was a funny story you told me about like a concert like in the middle of nowhere. Do you remember this?
a concert in the middle. Oh goodness,
Maybe not.
maybe not.
Well, so what was it like growing up? Like what was, I guess I'm curious on your family. I think you have two sisters. Kind of give us a little
I
bit of background
do.
of what was that like?
Yeah, very wholesome. Like I grew up like with very good parents. Two sisters. I was the middle child. Typical middle child syndrome. My older sister, Kelly, she's 18 months older than me, and my younger sister, Laura, 4 years younger than me. So both my mom and dad still live in the home that I was raised in and grew up in, and both of my sisters are within like 15 minutes of country driving. So
Still back in
still back in Pennsylvania. No, they both moved away and they ended up coming back to like raise their families there. It's kind of funny. All three of us girls are all Air Force veterans, and so they left and did like their military thing, and then they ended up coming back to home, what they knew as home. And for me, I was married and I had met my husband at the time. We're now divorced, but and then I kind of left after the military and never went back. And yeah, here I am.
Here we are. Well, I'm going to dive into the military in a little bit, but you know,
Yeah.
of course, I'm leading the witness here. Jessica and I are dear friends for many years now,
Yeah.
but thank you for your service. That means a lot
Of
to
course.
me and our country.
Yeah.
Let's talk about like high school and college.
Okay.
Did you were you athletic? Did you play sports? What did that look like? You know, when did you graduate, and where'd you go to college?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. Neither of my parents were particularly athletic, but I was. Like, of the three of us girls, I was always the one that was very interested. I was a tomboy, total tomboy, but athletic, played soccer, played like community softball. And then in high school, I was on the track and field team. And then it was kind of a funny thing. We always argued that marching band was a sport, but I was in the marching band, because you're not really an athlete, but it requires
Yeah.
a certain athleticism
Yeah,
to
yeah.
like move around on a field and play an
What'd you
instrument.
play?
I played the French horn.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, I love doing these interviews because I know you so well, but I did not know that.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then I did like dance as well. Not, dancers are obviously athletes, but I danced a lot, like growing up, tap and ballet.
Yeah.
So, and then even did some of that in college as well.
So where'd you go to school? And then I'm curious on
Yeah.
what that looks like, and then transitioning into the Air Force. So
Yeah. So alma mater for high school was Manheim Central High School in Manheim, Pennsylvania, and then I graduated from Franklin and Marshall College, also in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's a very, very old college. It was an all-boys school. It was actually founded before the signing of the Declaration of Independence by John Marshall and Ben Franklin.
oh wow.
So yeah,
Oh
and
cool.
it's still there. It's really cool. It's a very, very neat campus. It's kind of has that like old school, like Ivy League look to it with the
Yeah.
brick and the stone, and yeah.
What'd you
So
study?
I studied sociology. To be honest, like I had no idea what I was doing when I was 18. I mean, who does? But it was just kind of not a lot of family members went to college. I think at that point in time, I had an uncle on my mom's side and an aunt on my dad's side, and outside of that, no family members had had the college experience. And I did really well in high school. Like I was a straight A student.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and
Crossing the
so
T's, dotting the I's here at
yeah,
HQ continues that on that path.
my dad and mom were both very hardworking, like blue collar.
Yeah.
So I didn't grow up, I would say, wealthy by any means. I would say, if anything, like middle to lower middle class. And, college was like hard to envision because of the financial piece of it. But my dad ended up getting employed by a college, which allowed me to become part of a tuition exchange program. And so, just from a financial level, it afforded me the opportunity to like go to college in a way that wasn't going to put me in a lot of debt. So I ended up going to Franklin and Marshall on a tuition exchange scholarship and studied sociology because I was like, oh, this is fun. Like I'm learning about people and how people interact in groups. And I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't have like a goal of becoming a nurse or a doctor or engineer or anything like that. It was just sort of like that was the next step in like what my parents saw and their guidance of me and, becoming successful. I think as a parent, every parent wants their child to be better off, like more successful, less of the struggle than they had. And so, yeah, went to
That was the
college,
path.
studied sociology, and obviously I'm doing nothing related to that now, finance and HR. I mean, maybe the HR piece of it, the people
Yeah.
component,
And you're on a leadership
know.
team and you're working with people all the
Yeah.
time. So I think there's probably
Yeah.
something to be said for that.
Yeah.
By the way, this is kind of like off topic. Well, I guess on topic, but just you have awesome Midwest salt of the earth vibes, and that was the first thing I picked up when we first met years ago.
Yeah.
And coming from Pennsylvania for you, Michigan for me, so I still even hold that viewpoint of you to this day. I'm really
Yeah.
grateful for that.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of funny. I was thinking about college. I remember sitting in a class once, and the professor sort of just went around the room. It was introductory, getting to know everybody. And it was like, hey, what's everybody doing here? What's everybody want to study? And obviously, like just said, I had no idea. But I knew at that time, like more than anything else in my heart, like I wanted to be a mom. And I wanted to be a mom who like invested in her kids and like poured into her kids more than like that would be my life's work. Like I knew that at a young age more than I knew like anything else. Like career focus. Yeah, I knew I wanted to be a mom.
Well, I was going to take the conversation, well, I'm still going to around your military, but I think it's just a great segue to talk about your two amazing boys who I've
Yeah.
befriended, Dutch and Duke. So why don't you tell a little bit about your beautiful boys?
They're amazing. I think every parent is partial.
Yeah, of course.
But
they're awesome.
yeah,
They're third
good
party.
boys, and they're so different. They're so. My older son Dutch is a junior in high school. He's 17 years old.
Going on 35. So mature.
So mature. But he has his struggles with that because then it's hard for him to relate to other kids in his class. So, but he's a joy to be around. He's so black and white, which is kind of like how I see things. I'm very black and white. And then my younger one is like total opposite. He's 14. Also very mature, being the younger brother. I think when you're around, the older sibling, they're 2.5 years apart. When you're around the older sibling, and I've always raised my kids to be like, I've treated them like humans, right? And, I didn't really like mollycoddle or baby them too much. I just always talk to them like they're a human being. And so by nature, they just have this more mature mentality about them.
Totally.
I think Dutch would probably disagree. He thinks his brother's like
Not mature.
immature and like annoying,
That's
but
just the
that's
older
like
brother,
classic.
though. That's well, and it's in Friends. It's so interesting because Jessica, and I say this with so much love, she reminds me so much of our mother, my brother Barrett, who's our executive director of coaching, sits on our leadership team, and my brother and I just see Dutch and Duke, your sons, all the time. It's just such a really cool thing. So yeah, I think from Dutch's perspective, that's just the older brother just giving his younger brother a hard time, which I still do to this day to my younger brother.
Yeah.
But they are absolutely sweet, and you've done an incredible job.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll probably continue dialogue there, but kind of transitioning. So you graduate from college, you joined the Air Force. Let's talk a little bit about that experience, and give us a 30,000-foot overview.
Yeah, so my initial job out of college was not the Air Force. I spent actually about a year working for Children and Youth Services. So children who had experienced abuse in some capacity in their home. I knew nothing, right? And I'm trying to relate to, kids who are living in an abusive environment and parents, and I have nothing to teach them or tools to give them anything but my life experience as a quote unquote privileged white kid
Yeah.
who just has been educated her entire life from 5 till 22 when I graduated from college. And then I go into trying to like help parents who are, not
Distressed
being
and
the best parents,
yeah.
right? And it was very eye-opening for me. And so I transitioned out of that. I ended up moving to Philadelphia and did a year working for JP Morgan Chase doing annuity investments.
Ooh, I knew J.P. Morgan Chase. I didn't know about the previous work, but
Uh-huh.
continue.
And then it was after that I'm like, is this life? Like this is wild. Like this is not like I'm young, like I'm unattached, like I want to be experiencing things. I always had this desire to travel and see the world and get out because I grew up in such a conservative area that there's got to be more to life than this. Living in this like small town, very close-minded as well, and I just wanted to get out and I wanted to see the world. But like I didn't have the means at that point. Like I just finished college, you're working
You're
an entry level
23
position.
years old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
22, 23 years old, and I just wanted to go. And I'm like, where's the opportunity for me to be able to go? I obviously saw my older sister who was experiencing the world by way of the military. And so, yeah, I ended up enlisting. So I could have gone in as an officer, but I knew the trajectory, I knew the path for an officer was very like management, right? And in hindsight, that probably would have been better off for me, but I was young and a
Yeah.
little naive, but I also knew that like I just wanted this opportunity to see the world, and I wouldn't get that being an officer to my understanding at that time. So I ended up having a really cool position as an aircrew member on a KC-10 doing mid-air refueling.
And where did you go? And again,
I
I'm just leading the
mean,
witness, but you've been everywhere.
I've been a ton of places. It
Yeah.
it really literally it took me all over the
Give me
world.
some examples.
Romania, Berlin, Germany, Brussels, Japan, Okinawa, Japan, the Middle
Tell the
East.
audience about some of the flights that I feel like you used to do from the East Coast, then Italy, and then
Oh
station and back.
yeah,
Like, give us some
yeah.
insight there.
We had this one run. I can't remember the name of the run. There was a specific name for it, but we would take off from our base in New Jersey. We would leave New Jersey. We would fly to Dover, and we do what's called a quick turn. So you land and then you take off immediately. And then we would fly to Italy, Sicily. We would land in Sicily because there's a naval air station there, and we would stay the night. Just minimum
One
crew
night.
rest, one night, and just like not even a night. It's like minimum amount of time required by like military waivers for you to get what they call crew rest.
Oh, yeah.
So we'd get our crew rest. We would take off. We would fly it to Bahrain. We would quick turn Bahrain, fly back to Sicily, spend a night in Sicily, take the night, like leave from Sicily, and then come back through Dover, quick turn back to New Jersey. So it took less than 48 hours to do that entire trip.
Oh, wow.
Not, I'm sorry, 40. I meant to say 4 days.
4 days.
4 days.
But
So
still, though.
just under 4 days.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it was wild. Yeah. And that was it was a pure cargo mission. It's pure just taking cargo back and forth. And then sometimes we would refuel planes along the way. So it
Good
was wild.
times.
It was really cool.
How long did you surf for?
Just under 4 years.
Okay.
So I didn't quite do a full 4 years. I ended up getting pregnant, married, and then I actually met my ex-husband in the Middle East on a
Okay.
deployment. And then I got pregnant with Dutch, and when you're pregnant, it precludes you from flying. And so
Oh, yeah.
I knew that I was going to get out. So the Air Force allowed me to get out prior to my 4-year commitment because of there's a clause that says that some women don't find being in the military or being pregnant conducive to being in the military.
Oh,
So,
copy.
yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So, well, again, thank you for your service. Really
My
appreciate
pleasure.
you.
It's at the core of who I am,
Yeah.
like serving.
I love that.
Yeah.
So true. All right, so kind of, now you're married, you have Dutch. How do you make it to California? Was there
Yep.
a couple other, I guess, stops in between? But yeah, curious on how you got here.
Yeah, so there were a couple stops. So I was in New Jersey when I was married and pregnant, but my husband at the time was in New Mexico. And so then I got pregnant with Dutch and I moved to New Mexico. He was still in the Air Force at the time, but then he ended up getting out of the Air Force and transferring over to government service as continued his career in government service. He was a, federal agent for the FBI, and his first assignment out of the FBI Academy was Pittsburgh, back to my roots.
Oh, wow.
And then after Pittsburgh, they transferred us out here to LA,
Southern California.
to the LA division, and then there's lots of field offices for the FBI in the Southern California area. But he ended up in Riverside, was his first office.
Oh, wow. For context for our audience, what
Yeah.
year was this roughly when you came to LA/Riverside?
Yeah, so Duke was 1. So he was born in 2009. So we moved January of 2011.
Oh, 11.
Yeah, he had just turned 1.
Oh, got it.
So yeah, September 2009. Yeah, so January 2011.
And at this time, I mean, you're sporting your ex-husband, you're super mom, I
Yep.
guess, have both your boys.
Yep.
And I would imagine for the following few years, that was the
I did.
trajectory.
I did. I stayed home. Like my college dream
Yeah.
came true of being
Yeah.
a stay-at-home mom raising my boys. And so I was able to do that. I was very blessed, very fortunate until my younger son started school full-time. So it ended up being a total of 8 years
Oh, good for
that
you.
I was home with the boys, just raising them and being a mom.
Doing a good job laying down foundation for beautiful kids, which you have today.
Thank you.
All right, cool. So now that you're doing your stay-at-home mom duty, and then I'm curious on the next step. And really, how'd you find Fit Body Boot Camp? What was the introduction?
Yeah.
How'd you learn about it?
Well, it's kind of funny story, but being involved in the community, being a parent, getting my kids into sports, I was helping sort of coach the boys' baseball and soccer teams, and the founder and owner of Fit Body Boot Camp, Mr. Bedros himself,
Yeah.
and his wife Diana, their son Andrew, was on the same soccer team as my older son Dutch, and so naturally, I'm kind of free spirited, and when I'm not in a work environment, everybody at work kind of knows me as being a little bit more rigid and playful at times as well, but
That's so true. You are very rigid and playful, but from a personality perspective, a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah. So when I'm out on the field, but I'm intense. You know what I mean? Like I'm
Yeah.
helping coach the boys, and sometimes in that coaching environment, some of that military background comes
out.
out, like the discipline. 'Cause
Even
there's
at
so
here
much-
at HQ, just cracking the whip, making sure our finances are in place. Holy smokes.
But the discipline component in sports is very much present, right? Even at a young age. And if you can instill that when you're teaching kids at a young age that you need to have discipline in order to be successful, playing baseball, playing soccer, whatever sport it is. And so I think maybe I was observed by Bedros as being a little who's this chick out in the field running around, bossing these kids around?
Yeah.
And, what's her story? I
Yeah.
intrigued him. And then just ended up getting to know him and his wife personally. And it just kind of developed from there. So after knowing them for probably over a year, Diana was at the time, launching her brand, Real Healthy Recipes. And so she said, hey, just entertain the idea of maybe, coming to work for me and helping me grow this particular aspect of our business. And that's what I did. So
you befriended the Coolians.
I did.
And just to reinforce, you're new to the channel. Bedros is our founder, and then Diana is his wife. So connected with them, and then she invited you in. Initially, you were not working for Fit Body Boot Camp. It was Real Healthy Recipes specifically for
Right.
Diana.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And I was just kind of doing content creation and posting on social media and helping with her subscription for her website that was launching. She went from a blog to a website at that time as well, so it was kind of helping with the launch of her website. And
What year is this roughly for context?
2017.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So just about a year before we met.
Yeah.
Right around the same time.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think I probably you came and started working in the capacity for HQ as the VP in
June of 2018.
18.
Yeah.
But I think
But
I'd known you prior just
met
because
prior.
in social gatherings.
Yeah,
and-
Bedros'
yeah.
house, being
Yeah,
that house.
exactly.
So I knew you for probably about a year
Yep.
before I joined the HQ team.
Yeah. So, and it just kind of grew from there. I think there's an opportunity in every position that you have. If you make yourself valuable, if you make yourself useful, and you figure things out, and you sort of have that utility about yourself and your work ethic, it doesn't go unnoticed, right?
Totally.
And so I just was kind of I'm gonna just keep learning and taking opportunity to if I see something and I think I can do it, I'm gonna step in and take the reins on it and learn more and grow more. And Yeah.
And that was the plan. So I'm going to take a quick second, just do a humble brag on you. And I'm curious on the trajectory, initially working for Dye and then now becoming the
Yeah.
director of finance and HR. But Jessica Friends has just in the last few years has just done an incredible job of leading the team, cleaning up a lot of finances, specifically in the franchising industry, not specific to FitBody, but any franchise that you know, McDonald's, Subway. We are highly regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. We have to go through extensive audits. So, business is complex to begin with, but then you have an extra layer of scrutiny here at FitBody because of the franchising industry that we're in. We're in two business models. We're in the franchising industry at our core, but then globally the fitness industry. So there's a lot of moving parts. And Jessica, you have came in and done an incredible job top to bottom, and I'm so grateful for that. So I wanted just to shine a light, for our audience. This is the brains behind the operation, making sure that our books are clean and, we can serve our franchise partners because it's important to have a clean house on the back end so you can serve on the front end. So I wanted to be able to provide some clarity and give you all the love and credit that you deserve.
Well, thank you.
But how did that kind of transition from, or what were the few roles from the time that you joined working with Dye, all of a sudden now becoming, on our leadership team, director of finance for FitBody Bootcamp International?
I would say the next probably big step up in like the advancement of like my tenure here was when there was an opportunity with HR. And so I stepped into that role. I think there was like sort of an acknowledgement of like how I interacted with people and, many lessons learned in managing people as well, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
But that's the next position that I stepped into, was more that HR role. And at the time, there was a lot of crossover between FitBody and then some of the other commonly owned companies, and it was sort of managing all of the human resources for the many things that Bedros and Diana, many entities that they have. And so I stepped into that role, and I think by nature of being in that role, you're made aware of where like not only the good is, but then like the inefficiencies or where there's room for improvement, or if there's concerns with performance. And so by nature of just being made aware of some of the underperforming departments, that's sort of how I ended up stepping into the finance aspect of things as well, because we were growing, right? And we needed to grow the team, and in the finance department in particular, and in our quest to sort of find somebody to take the reins on that and really lead it well, like we kept coming up short, and so I was finally in that process. I was like, I think I could do this. Like,
Totally.
I think I could probably, like, even though I'm not trained in it and I'm not professing to be an accountant by nature.
But we have a CPA and all that in
Correct.
consultancy you work through. But actually, I think that's a great point as well, because you're not trained in this, but why I believe you've been so successful in this role was, number one, you have a strong level of professionalism. You clearly want to win. You're an awesome, leader in person to begin with, but also two, your skill set, you're very analytical, very detail oriented. So because of that lends itself really, really strongly to, keeping books, which is very important to have, an eye for detail. So those are a couple of things that I see, but yeah, I want to, kind of step back in, and I'm curious from your perspective, if you can tell some of our franchise partners or future franchise partners watching this, like what's the ins and outs of running a finance team, and how do you support HQ, and how do you really support our owners?
Yeah. So supporting HQ directly, like obviously there's components of, there's like finance and then there's accounting, right? And to support the team here at HQ, I have to ensure people get paid, right? Because like
That's important.
it's a big driver. So obviously like managing the payroll and the cash flow, and that's all components of finance. And then also making sure that we adhere to the things that we're obligated to adhere to because of rules around franchising. The FTC, there's accounting principles that we are required to adopt, ASC 606 and then ASC 842, which are things that we are governed by because we are a franchise, and we have an auditing firm that does an independent private audit of our financials every single year. And being able to be part of that process and streamline it over over the past 3 years has really allowed us to see the ways in which we can better grow our business because we are more in tune with our finances. And I think that was a really large missing component that wasn't there for us in the early years, in the infancy of of running a franchise. And that is no knock to anybody that was in that position previously. I think Bedros and Diana and even some early leadership didn't set out with this idea of like, yeah, we're going to become a franchise. It was just like, oh, we have to franchise because we're selling this business model. And the FTC came in pretty strong-handedly and said, hey, you guys, if you want to continue to grow the brand and grow locations throughout the US and Canada, you need to franchise. And then we just had a whole slew of rules and regulations that we then had to follow. But yeah, and so it's just really been like ensuring that we adhere to those standards, because if you don't, they'll come in, they'll shut down your sales. And that operationally, it's, as you know, sales is the lifeblood of your business. And whatever we need to do to support that, finance being one of them, to have our audited financials so that we can file our FDD.
And actually, can you touch on that? It's one of the last points specifically from like a work perspective that I want to kind of glean some insight, especially for our new prospect franchise partners kind of going through the process, not knowing what a FDD or franchise disclosure document, what is that? And then I guess what's your role, because we have to refile it on an annual basis. And we just love your perspective to be able to kind of give some insight, education, and maybe calm some nerves as well.
Yeah, so the franchise disclosure document, it's very long, it's a legal document, but that's what FDD stands for, franchise disclosure document. It's really a disclosure of us to be able to show like who we are, right? Because when you are looking to become part of a franchise, it's a relationship, right? You engage into a 7-year agreement with Fit Body Bootcamp if you decide to sign on that dotted line. And we're disclosing to you, hey, this is sort of what it's going to take to become part of our franchise model, from how much money it's going to take, like how much our buy-in is, what sort of the item 19 might look like if you want to see like how on average our locations performing, to see what your profitability levels might be. That's all information that's typically found within that franchise disclosure document. And it's there and it's designed for franchise partners to read through and ask the questions and get comfortable with, signing on that line and becoming part of a franchise agreement, to know that you have the support of a brand, right? Because it's scary. I'm not a business owner, right? And I feel like I have an entrepreneurial mindset, but I don't own a business. So I imagine like the nerves or the hesitation with
big scary document. A lot of unknowns,
for sure. But it's designed to get people more comfortable. It's not because we're trying to hide stuff in the fine print. It's just, we want you to be fully disclosed on what you're getting into to be part of Fit Body Bootcamp, including our financials. And so when we do our financial audit every single year, that gets put into our franchise disclosure document for people to see, and anybody can go look it up.
That's it. Transparency is a good thing.
It is a good thing. So.
All right. So I think 30,000 foot view, looking back at your role specifically with Fit Body, what would you say is your most challenging part of your role? And then on the flip side, what's the most fulfilling part of your role here, serving our headquarters and our franchise partners throughout North America?
Yeah. Challenging. I feel like there's like two parts to that, right? There's the part that's like personal and individual to you. And then there's the piece that is more broad and like across the company, as like being in a position of leadership. Being in a position of leadership, like by and far, I would say like leading people. It's hard. Like I've learned so much through that, like things I've said that I shouldn't have said, doing what is correct in certain circumstances, but maybe not what was actually right and the right thing to do, because there's a big difference.
Oh yeah.
And like I've learned tremendously through that, in just how to better engage with your team and build that culture, which I mean ultimately that's leads to like the second part of your question, which is like your favorite part about working here. It's one, obviously it's like working with like high performers, but then it's also like it's the people. Do you know what I mean? Like I I love working here. I love the people that I work with, and I want to continue to grow and develop that culture. And I never want anything that I do to be the detriment of, our culture. So, on the flip side, personally, I think the voice within is probably the biggest challenge for me, because I think to some degree we all struggle with what's known as imposter
Oh,
syndrome,
yeah.
right? And so it's like learning when to listen and when not to listen to the voice inside of you trying to kind of tear yourself down. Yeah. So,
But you know what? You have the imposter syndrome. I have the imposter syndrome. Our audience watching this, that's just part of the
yeah.
process as well. So I appreciate your vulnerability, but it's real.
Yeah.
Jessica, this has been an awesome conversation. I appreciate you so much. Before we go, my last question for you is just really your parting piece of wisdom. There is some either franchise partner or specifically non-franchise partner. They're going through the process right now. They're excited. They see this awesome brand. They're engaging in our process. They see the impact, the income, all the value they can, acquire, right? And they have that kind of champion voice saying like, yeah, you can do it. But they have that imposter syndrome voice as well,
Yeah,
that internal
for
critic.
sure.
What would you say to that person and why?
I would say to that person, I mean, there's a reason why they're expressing interest in becoming a franchise partner and becoming part of a brand. And they want to change, right? They're looking for a change. And maybe they're in that corporate grind. Maybe they are a mom whose kids are older and they're looking to get back in the workforce, but they don't want to commit to a 9 to 5, or they still want their freedom. And I would say, when you're in a position of not being happy with where you are, like if you do nothing, like nothing will change, right? Like I believe I might have like stole that from somebody, and I'm not quoting that as my own, but I've learned that lesson in my life. Like if you don't do anything to make an effort to make a change, nothing is going to happen. So sure, stay where you're at, right? Continue to be in the rat race, the corporate grind, feeling unfulfilled as a mom and a wife and looking for that next thing, wanting to spend more time with your family. Maybe you're a dad and you've been, in a position that hasn't allowed you to spend as much time with your family as you wanted to. Like you have to be willing to step away from it in order to like impact that change in your life. So yeah. So be willing to go 180 degrees from what you're currently in and get uncomfortable. It's for me personally, not in a professional capacity. It's the one thing that completely changed my life was be willing to get uncomfortable, to make the change and go 180 degrees from where you're currently standing. And it's like the best thing I've ever done for myself.
Mic drop, Jessica Piersol. Oh my goodness, this is awesome. And before I wrap, I just wanted to acknowledge you and thank you, not only for being here today, which has been an incredible conversation, incredible experience, but just being for who you are as a person. I am so connected with you. I'm so grateful for you, what you've done to our organization to be the support system, the mom here at HQ in a very loving way, for you to take care of our team in such a gracious manner, for what you've done to be able to help support our franchise partners through our finances and all the regulations that we have to go through any franchise system. You are the backbone and you are the brains behind the operation. And I really enjoyed this conversation because a lot of times our franchise business coaches, or maybe me or a couple other leaders that are more forward facing, are out front of camera. But I want to take the opportunity to really showcase our audience, really someone special to me and also special to our organization. So from the bottom of my heart, Jessica, I want to appreciate you and love you.
Well, thank you. I'm honored. I was nervous and you know that, but like now that I'm sitting here just like talking and having a conversation, like it's just so natural. And it was a pleasure.
Well, the pleasure was mine. Friends, I know you got a ton of value. My only ask is share this with someone who needs more inspiration. That way we can keep producing this content for you for free. Thank you so much, Jessica. And remember that no one is coming to save you. You must save yourself, and the time is now. We'll see you in the next episode.